Good morning, Makers Church. Pastor Shalise and Pastor Mark here. We just want to thank you guys so much for joining us wherever you are. We want to give you a little bit of the lay of the land today of our online gathering. We're going to do a song of worship in a minute, and then Pastor Derrick has an amazing message for us, followed by another period of extended worship that you can join with us in.
Yes, and you can actually interact with us live right now. So if you're on your computer, to my left, your right here, you can chat with us. We're here to respond. If you're on your phone, it's down here, you can chat. And you can also request prayer, which will open up a private chat, and someone is here from our team ready and willing to pray with you. You can also heart stuff. If Derrick says something really awesome, you want to just digital amen. And then on the website, there's lots of other ways to interact with us as well. So, and you can give online, right?
Yeah, you can give online. We have a special benevolence fund set up for specifically for Here for Good. So we've suspended our building campaign. We're putting all of our resources into meeting the needs of our community. And if you would like to give specifically to that, or if you just would like to give your regular tithe, you can do that online as well.
Yes. And thank you so much to all of you who have just really stepped up, taking care of each other.
Yeah.
Calling, texting, FaceTiming, Zooming, whatever it's looked like in this new crazy landscape. You're doing an awesome job checking in on one another. So keep it up. And we just keep hearing amazing stories of you guys being here for good in practical ways. And so again, like Shalise said, on the site, there's lots of ways that you can support that and request help as well. And if you want more specific information on our response to COVID, we also have a page. It's COVID-19. That is the URL. So makerschurch.org/COVID-19. You can find out more there.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna worship, and then we're
good.
gonna hear a word from Derrick, and then at the end there's gonna be more worship if you want to stick around. We filmed some of it in the morning, some of it at night.
It's great.
The night session, you can even hear the rain in the background. It was actually a really, really unrehearsed but beautiful, beautiful, authentic time of just getting together, and it was good for my soul. So
yeah,
hopefully you enjoy it, and it's refreshing to you as well as you worship with us from your home or your car, wherever you're at.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Love you guys.
lifted high in our world. Be lifted high in our love. Be lifted high. In my life, be lifted high in our world. Be lifted high in our love. Be lifted high.
In my life, be lifted high in our world. Be lifted high in our love. Be lifted higher and higher. In my life, be lifted high in our world. Be lifted high in our love. Be lifted high. I'll praise before my breakthrough, till my song becomes my triumph. I will sing because I trust you. I will bring my heart. I will lift my soul.
Hey, good morning and welcome to Makers Church Online. I'm so glad that you've taken the time to be with us. If we've never met before, my name's Derrick and I serve here as the lead pastor. And I'm just so grateful that you take the time to tune in. Now, we'd love to be together in person, but I'm just really thankful that you take the time to join us in your living room or on your iPad, your phone, your Xbox, whatever you might be on. We're really grateful to be able to gather like this together. My prayer is that wherever you are and whoever you are with, that you would be in a moment, even just this morning, where you feel peace and where you feel love and where hope is beginning to rise again in the midst of all of this. And if you're not there quite yet, my prayer is that you'll be there by the end of our time together this morning. If you're new with us for the first time, if this is the first time you've ever encountered Makers Church, we're so glad that you take the risk and join us. And I just want to welcome you. And even though we're not gathering together in person, we can still be connected deeply. And so I would love for you to familiarize yourself with us by going to www.makerschurch.org. And you can find out a whole lot about us there, and you can interact with us there. If this is your first time with us, this is a unique way to do it. There's typically hundreds of us who are waiting to meet you and who are waiting to welcome you into the family. And we're all still here with you right now. We're just all in our own living rooms. And we're here and we're in your corner. And we want you to know that there's a whole community of people who love you, who care about you, who want to help you in this time of need. And we're praying for you. And our biggest hope is that you'd find Jesus in this season. If you have any need, we would love to serve that need. And we have volunteers all over the city who are willing to step into that need for you. Whether you need somebody to talk to or somebody to pray with you, if you need a ride to the doctor's office or to a hospital, if you need somebody to go grocery shopping for you, whatever your needs are, we would love to know about that, and we'd love to respond to that. And so the best way for you to tell us is to go to makerschurch.org, and on our front page, there's a button that you can click where you can ask for help. And also, if you're with us and you're part of Makers Church, or you just want to help meet a need, there's another button you can click that says, hey, I'm here to help. And we're gonna do our best to pair you guys together, for those of you who need help and for those of you who want to help. And I just really believe that every tragedy can be turned into an opportunity. And I think we have an incredible opportunity right now to be kind to each other, to lead in love, to be voices of hope. And I'm just excited about, even though it's a really, really scary time for us, I'm excited about what's going to come on the other side of this. I know that there's been so much disruption, and there's been so much concern and fear and anxiety, particularly of the unknown. And I think the craziest thing that we've all experienced is that the unknown is coming at us faster than it ever has. You know, typically we think about what's out there next week or next year, and really we've been so conditioned in the last few days to be concerned about what's happening in the next few hours. What new news are we going to get? What new development is there going to be? And I know that most of you, if you're like me, you're just tired. You're just exhausted from the unknown and from the concern and from the fear and anxiety that's just, I think, traveling faster than even the coronavirus is. And my hope for us is that we would begin to be the kind of people that really begin to believe in this season that on the other side of this thing, we're going to be stronger than we've ever been. That on the other side of this thing, we're going to be more grateful than we've ever been. I mean, grateful for the small things, grateful for the ability to see each other, to be cut off from each other on the freeway. We're going to be grateful for things we've never been grateful for before. And most importantly, I hope that even now we can begin to believe, begin to see, and even begin to experience that we have a God who is with us in the middle of this. One of my favorite songs in the last season has been In the Fire. And it talks about how God is with us in the fire, and God is with us when the seas are parted, and God is with us in these times of tragedy and in these times of crisis. And I know that sometimes you might not even get to the place where you believe God is good. And if you're in that place right now, I just want to give you permission to be in that place. But I hope that in this season, you'd begin to believe that God is with us. And on the other side of it, we're going to see how good God really is. Maybe you're hearing this for the first time, or maybe you just need to be reminded of this, but we serve a God who cares about you, and a God who is the great provider. And I know that there's a whole set of us who are just totally concerned about being able to provide for our families. And I want to seed that thought that we serve a God who's the great provider. And even though we may not be able to see a way forward, there is a way forward. And I believe God is going to lead us through that. And I also want to just remind you of the fact that we serve a God who cares about your fear, who cares about your anxiety. And Jesus says that he's the Prince of Peace. And so we have a God who wants to be with us in our fear and in our peace. And my prayer for you this morning is that you'd begin to experience some of that. I know that there's been a lot of new everything for us. New rhythms, new realities, new language. I mean, there's probably been more new phrases introduced into our life in the last week than we're even comfortable with. And what I want to do this morning is I want to take a moment to kind of help describe really 4 terms that are getting confused. They're getting locked together, and they're becoming this one big kind of misunderstood ball of wax. And I think if we can begin to separate these new phrases and understand them in each of their own unique ways, it might bring a little bit of peace to us. And so I want to talk about 4 phrases that we've all learned in the last few weeks, and then I want to introduce a 5th phrase that I want to rest in, I want to settle on for the rest of our time together this morning. So the first phrase is social distancing. Social distancing, it's everywhere. We're seeing it. We're mandated to do it. We're seeing it happen in food takeout lines. The people that are still thriving and operating in this season, in the healthcare world, in the first responder world, in the service industry world, we keep seeing we're operating, but we're implementing social distancing guidelines. And all of you are social distancing right now because you're at home and you're tuned in online. And that's a word that we're all experiencing. The entire planet, this is insane to think about. The whole world right now is embracing these principles of social distancing. And that's a good thing. And we're just so glad that we can be together in this. Now, the other words that keep getting thrown around that I think are misunderstood would be the next level of severity, which would be self-quarantine. And self-quarantine is a self-imposed moment where you're going to even do more than social distance. You're going to self-quarantine. You're actually going to do your best to be away from people, even your family. And you're going to do that if you have been exposed to somebody with the coronavirus, or if you think that you're at a higher risk. And that's a decision you're going to make for yourself. And so there's self-quarantine. Now, the third thing that we hear a lot, and this is probably the most misunderstood word, is everyone keeps saying we're under quarantine. We're not under quarantine as a nation. We're not under quarantine even as a city. Quarantine, the official word, is if the government or the health department says that you've been infected, or that you're at the highest risk of being infected, they're going to put you in quarantine. And this is what we've seen when people come back from cruise ships or come back from traveling abroad. And those are government-imposed sanctions that are saying, we are going to keep you separated for 14 days. Now, the last and most severe is isolation. And isolation is also imposed from the health department or from government officials. And that happens when you actually are infected. When you are infected with the COVID virus, you are going to be in isolation for 14 days. So I know that everybody watching right now, we may have experienced one level of that. But the one that we're all experiencing right now is social distancing. And even that idea right now, as we've begun to live into that, one, it was something we couldn't even imagine a week ago. And it's now something that we have a few days of experience with under our belts. And I just want to applaud humanity for being able to pivot and adapt in an unimaginable way, that we would be able to do this together. There are some of us, I work as a fireman, and there are healthcare providers and politicians and researchers and scientists who have leaned into the fray. And we've run to the front lines of this, and we're practicing social distancing in the midst of that. But even more honorable than that is the rest of the world who has done their part to separate, to distance themselves from each other socially. And I've said it earlier this week, it does not mean that we have to be disconnected from each other relationally. And so I just want to encourage you to lean into that, to call each other, to get on a FaceTime or Zoom call with people. Even comment right now in the thread as you're watching online. This is a way to connect with each other on this new church online platform that we have. Something that I'm encouraged by also is that we as a society, we've become more united in the face of this. We've become more united even in our separation, in our distancing from each other. And it's just been so neat to see that with all of the polarization, with all of the election year and all of the different things that could separate us, we've been bound together in this. That we are doing everything we can, each and every one of us, to stop the spread of this virus. But my hope, and what I have seen already happen, is that even in the midst of social distancing, we've seen love travel faster than the virus. We've seen love become more viral than the virus. We've seen hope become more viral, traveling faster than the virus. We have seen people reaching out in neighborly love and kindness more than we've seen in recent human history. And so I just want you to be encouraged by that as well. And for the rest of our time this morning, I want to talk about a new phrase that I think is probably the most important phrase for us to capture, to lean into, and to really embrace in this season. And it's called social solitude. That's what I want to talk about for the rest of our time together. I know that some of us are in different places. Some of you are busier than you've ever been at work. Some of you, work has slowed down quite a bit because you're figuring out how to do it at home. Some of you have lost your jobs and you have more time in this season, even though you have more concern in this season on your hands. Some of you have already been stay-at-home parents or retired. We're all experiencing this in different ways. But what's true for all of us is that we are having to figure out a new rhythm of life. And as we're all figuring out a new rhythm of life, what I want to plead with you this morning is that you would find a way to implement not just social distancing, but social solitude. I was thinking about the season that we're in, and the idea that the entire world is experiencing this pandemic together. But there's another thing that a lot of the world has been in this season as well. Christ followers all around the world have already been in this season together called Lent. And Lent is a season where we reflect on the 40 days that Jesus spent in the desert, that Jesus spent in the wilderness. And I don't know about you, but I can imagine that a lot of your homes are feeling like the desert right now. That a lot of the circumstances that you're in are feeling like the wilderness right now. And so I just want to lean into a season of Lent together, to imagine what was happening in the desert as Jesus was there, right after his baptism and before he set off into public ministry. And Lent's a season that invites us to contemplate our own spiritual journey and to consider the disciplines that we need to become whole humans, to become whole beings. And so I want to lean into that together. Lent, it's not about penance. It's not even about proximity. It's not a season where we try to get closer to God, or a season where we try to do the right thing or restrict ourselves from certain things so that God would like us more. It's not about that. The scriptures say that the Spirit of God is everywhere. And if you've chosen to follow Jesus with your life, in fact, that the Spirit of God is in you. And so really the season of Lent, it's not about proximity or getting closer to God. It's really about awareness. It's about becoming fully aware of the presence of God in us. And I think one of the greatest pathways to that revelation is going to happen through social solitude. The scriptures say this in Mark 1, verse 12. It says, "At once the Spirit sent Jesus out into the desert. And he was in the desert for 40 days, being tempted by Satan. And he was with the wild animals, and the angels attended him." Now, I know when you hear this passage, like I said, you can feel like you might be in the wilderness, you might be in the desert, and 40 days might be really hopeful for you. You might hope this thing lasts less than 40 days or even 40 days. And some of you, that's terrifying. Like, 14 days, get me out of here. I hope this thing passes. We don't know how long this thing is going to last, but we do know that we have an opportunity now to lean in. So solitude's an interesting thing. If you're an extrovert like me, you can actually you could shout right now in the comment thread on Church Online right now. You can just say, "Hey, I'm an extrovert," or say whatever you want to say in the comment thread. If you're an introvert, you can even whisper it. You can whisper it into the comment thread, and you can just say, "Hey, I'm an introvert." But the reality is we're all wired differently. And so this season is hitting us differently. And as an extrovert, this season has hit me really, really hard. And so the idea of a spiritual discipline called solitude, that's a very, very challenging thing. It takes more work for a guy like me to embrace this, to lean into solitude. If you're an introvert, you might be more wired for it, but I can promise you that it's just as challenging. See, I think that we need to understand that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness, it's really an inner condition of isolation. See, you could be in a crowd and be lonely. You could be in a fast-moving world with so much activity. You can be in proximity to so many people, and you can still be lonely, because loneliness, it's an inner condition of isolation. Solitude's different. Solitude is an internal and an external quietness. It's a centering. It's a time where we become centered and connected to a loving God. At work on the fire engines, we have these headsets called David Clark headsets, and they're really just an industrial version of Beats by Dre. They serve two purposes. They're noise canceling, so they drown out the noise of the fire engine and the noise of the siren. They protect our hearing. But more importantly than that, they're a direct line of communication with the guys in the crew on the rig. And these headsets, they've become kind of their own little universe as we be able to talk about an incident on the way to a call. And most importantly, it's really a chance for us to communicate different risks that we might be headed into, might be able to share information that I have as the captain on the computer, telling us what we might be going into together. And they allow me to communicate life hazards to the crew. But they also allow us to just to be connected with each other. As we drive around the town and we solve all the world's problems, it's kind of this closed circuit way to communicate. And even though it can make us be really disconnected with each other, I'm not going to lie, there's time where I get so busy and I get so distracted, and I should be in direct communication with my crew, and I should be locked in, and we should be just the four of us talking to each other. But there's moments, honestly, if I'm going to confess, often where I get distracted. And the phone might ring, and I'll take my phone and I'll hit the mute button on here so the guys can't hear me. And I'll slide this right here, and it's a perfect little phone holder. And I'll be driving around town like this, and the guys won't even know that I'm offline. I'm just talking to somebody on the phone or listening to a voicemail. And while it looks like I'm connected, I'm really disconnected. And I really think that is probably true for a lot of us when it comes to our relationship with God. I think it's so easy to look like we're disconnected. It looks so easy to look like we're connected to God. We might say the right things. We might even look the right way. We might go to church on Sundays or tune in online. We might be part of a community group, or we might post certain things on our social media that make us look like we're really connected to God. But I know for me, especially in this season, it's been really easy to be distracted. I've been on my phone more now than I've probably ever been. In fact, I think it was Wednesday night, before this whole thing started to escalate. I was with a few of my closest friends, and we were trying to challenge each other towards being less distracted in life. And our phones don't lie. There's a screen time app on there. And so we kind of compared each other's screen time. We gave each other a challenge, and we said, hey, in a month, let's do a bet. Let's see who can lower their screen time by the biggest percentage. And the irony of that is that was the day before this whole thing took off, and I've been on my phone 24/7 since then. I'm definitely going to lose the bet. But if there's anybody that needs this charge, needs this invitation right now, it's probably me more than anybody. But I've been incredibly distracted in this season, as I've been trying to get good information, trying to make big decisions, trying to stay connected with people, which I think is super important. But if we allow ourselves, we're going to be so overwhelmed with distraction. And as I invite you into this season of not only social distancing, but social solitude, my hope and prayer for you is that we would begin to flatten the curve, not only of the spread of this virus, but we'd begin to flatten the curve of our distraction. The beautiful thing about solitude is that it moves us into a deep-rooted intimacy, a deep-rooted connection with God. And it's an essential discipline that we must learn to embrace for so many reasons. But there's two big pieces of fruit that I think grow out of solitude that I want to talk about. And the reason that I think we should lean into this is, most importantly, Jesus sought solitude. Jesus spent so much time, and even in the short amount of time he was with us in public ministry for 3 years, he spent so much time seeking places of refuge and seeking the quiet places. In Luke chapter 5, verse 15, it says, "The news about him spread all the more, so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sickness. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Even in the midst of all the need, even in the midst of all of the opportunity, Jesus still found time to embrace social solitude. Similarly, in Mark chapter 1, verse 35, it says, "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up. He left the house and he went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, 'Everyone is looking for you.'" I love this about Jesus, that when he was in the highest demand, he elevated social solitude to the highest regard. When Jesus was in the highest demand, he held solitude and connection with God in the highest regard. There were thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people waiting for Jesus to heal them, to teach them, to bless them. They were primed. They were ready. They were ripe for the harvest. The opportunity was great. The need was great. And yet Jesus was nowhere to be found. In fact, he gets almost rebuked by his followers. Jesus, everyone is looking for you. Jesus, he understood that the need was endless. But in order to accomplish the purpose for which God placed him here, he had to remain spiritually strong. And that required regular times of prayer and meditation, and regular times of rest and recuperation. And we see the same patterns in Jesus' relationships with his disciples. Again, in Mark, we see in chapter 6, verse 30, it says, "The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught." And then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. See, what I love about Jesus is that he did not demand or desire that his followers labor to the point of exhaustion. Now, I want you to hear me. I think that this is perhaps one of the greatest opportunities for us as the church to rise up. We are not shutting down. We are not closing down. We are not going dormant. We have an opportunity right now as the church to rise up, to be a voice of hope, to love deeply, to be great neighbors. This is our time. And we must respond, and we will respond, and we are responding. But I don't want to get lost in this, that while the need is great, we cannot pour water out of an empty cup. And we have an amazing opportunity to rise up. We have an amazing opportunity to be the light and love of Jesus, to be the answer, to be the physical response and help and need for so many others in this time. But we cannot do it if we're empty. We simply cannot do it if we're empty. And Jesus doesn't want that for us. He doesn't want us to labor to the point of exhaustion and burnout. In so many ways, when it comes to social solitude, it's about us retreating so that we can advance. It's about us retreating so we can advance. And my hope and prayer for you in this season, and so many of you are so well-intended, and so many of us, we desperately want to help. And my hope and prayer for you is that you would carry the tension of those two in this season, that you would be a great response to the help in the time of need, and we're going to leverage you, and we're going to mobilize you towards that. But we think the greatest opportunity that we have right now is for us in this season to lean fully in to a deep connection with Jesus, for us to depend fully on the goodness of our God, and for us to connect intimately with the power of his Holy Spirit. If we miss that in this season, we've missed it all. If we've missed that in this season, we've risked it all. And so my hope is that we would not miss that in this season. So why is social solitude so important to us? Well, not only is it important to us because it was important to Jesus, but I think there's really two major things that happen when we embrace this. First, social solitude is noise canceling. It's noise canceling. It allows us to listen to God. It can be a David Clark headset. It can be noise canceling and a direct line of communication to God. So often I think we find the way to hit the mute button, or we find the way to shove something in between that communication. And for me, it's been my phone. And I'm really working through right now in my own life what it means to be able to put the phone down, to balance the tension of being available to lead this church. And I just want to pause for a moment and say, I'm so proud of our church. I'm so proud of our pastors and our team. We have been rallying together. We've been working around the clock. We've been working tirelessly to navigate the waters of this new reality, to mobilize and equip you to respond to the needs of others. And so many of you have reached out and asked how to help. And I just want to say, I'm so grateful. I'm so privileged to be your pastor. And one of the greatest things that I'm going to be focused on in these next few days is to figure out how to embrace social solitude in the midst of this. to be able to put the phone away for certain times, to create boundaries and limitations around availability, to be able to connect, most importantly, with God, and secondly, with my family. And I'm charging you guys to do the same. I think social solitude, it's noise canceling. There is so much noise. And if we can just quiet the noise for a moment, I believe we'll actually be able to hear from God. The second benefit is that social solitude, it's a recipe for humility. I don't know about you, but I know that all the areas I thought I was needed in the ways I was needed in, have been blown to pieces. And I thought it was so important for me to be at this thing or be at that thing. And I know all of you are feeling the same way. You thought if you didn't show up to the office, the wheels would fall off. If you didn't show up to that birthday party or that thing, that life wouldn't go on. And I think what we're finding in this season is all of us, while valued and needed, and we have talent and skills and abilities to bring to our circles and our situations, at the same time, we're indispensable. I mean, I think we're really beginning to realize that it requires less of us sometimes to be more. The earth continues to revolve. I love this quote from Charles de Gaulle. He says, "The graveyards are full of indispensable men." The graveyards are full of indispensable men and women. And I think one of the greatest things that comes from our ability to embrace this social solitude is that we realize that we aren't the end all, that we aren't the be all, that we aren't the ones that are going to fix all the world's problems. And we realize that when we come back to whatever we're coming back to, it's still there. There's still a moment for us to serve, a moment for us to lead. But a period of withdrawal from our usual responsibilities, without the cell phone or the conference calls or the Zoom calls or the email, it can demonstrate powerfully to us that we are not as indispensable as we think we are. Somehow the earth continues to revolve around its axis and the sun continues to rise and set. And the good thing is that this is healthy for us. This is good for us. I think if we're honest with ourselves, at least if I'm honest with myself, sometimes the reason we don't step into solitude and we don't create good boundaries for ourselves is because we're arrogant and prideful. And we think that we're so needed and we're so irreplaceable. And I think we can really begin to see and embrace that just is not true when we embrace social solitude. I want to end with this in 1 Peter 5, verse 6. And I want you to meditate on these words. And if you're with us on Church Online right now, you can actually go to the Bible app and you could plug this in right there on that tab. You can plug in 1 Peter 5. We're going to start at verse 6. And the scriptures say this. They say, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." I think one of the greatest ways we can humble ourselves is to lean in to social solitude. And that's my invitation to you this morning, that you would humble yourself before God and allow him to lift you up in due time. In verse 6, probably one of the most repeated verses going around the world right now, "Cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you." Cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. I know that we are full of anxiety right now, and God wants us to bring that to him. And as we embrace this social solitude, I pray that might be the first thing that we bring to him, that we would cast our anxieties on him and really begin to learn and see that he truly does care for us in this time. Verse 8 says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering." Look, in our age, we have never been able to say that's true. But today, we are all going through the same suffering, the same fear, the same anxiety together. And I really do believe that the family of believers throughout the world we're going to be brought up together and out the other side of this thing in a more beautiful, powerful way. Verse 10 says, "And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while." It's going to just be a little while, friends. After you've suffered a little while, whatever your concerns are, whether it's your income, your livelihood, your paycheck, your business, the things that you were working on that you're afraid aren't going to be there when this thing is over, all of those things are just going to last a little while. This too will pass. It says that after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong. He will restore you and make you strong, firm and steadfast. To him be the power forever and ever. Amen. I love those words, and my prayer is that you would meditate on those words this week. Coming back to where we began, Mark chapter 1, it says that once the Spirit sent Jesus out into the desert, and he was in the desert 40 days being tempted by Satan. He was with the wild animals, and angels attended him. See, the scriptures say that it was the Spirit of God that actually moved Jesus out into the desert. See, sometimes I think we get this wrong. We think that it was the enemy, it was the devil that took Jesus out into the desert to tempt him. And we fear the desert. We fear the circumstances. We fear the wilderness because we feel like that's a place that perhaps our enemy brought us to. But this isn't the way the scriptures read. The scriptures actually say that it was the Spirit that sent Jesus into the desert. See, we get this wrong. We think that it was the desert that put Jesus in the weakest possible position for the enemy to tempt him. That is not the truth. The truth is that it was in the desert that Jesus was emboldened. It was in the desert that Jesus was refined. It was in the desert, in the solitude, that Jesus was more intimately connected, where he was stronger than he ever was. And it says that after those 40 days of being in solitude, it was then that Satan tempted him. It was then that he was at his strongest. It was then that he had the ability to resist the temptation of the bread, to resist the temptation of notoriety, to resist the temptation of power. See, I really believe that the desert places, the wilderness, the places where we can find solitude, is the place where we are not going to be weakened, but the place that will be strengthened. And my hope is that this season will be a season of strengthening for you. My hope is that this will be a season where you are empowered by the power of the Holy Spirit, where you hear from God distinctly, and that you are able to respond and come out the other side of this thing stronger than you've ever been. Jesus was at the height of his strength at the end of the desert season, and I believe we will be too. May we go to the place where we can disconnect. May we go to the place where we can connect with God. See, maybe you're tuned in right now and you've been striving to follow Jesus. You've been thinking, I need to do all the right things. I need to be the answer to all these things. And you've been trying desperately, spinning your wheels to earn the favor of God. And what I want you to hear this morning, if that's you, is that what he's inviting you to the most is to connect with him, to enter into a season of social solitude and build this into the bedrock, into the framework of your life. Not just for this season, but from this season forward. But maybe you're here this morning and you've never met the Jesus I'm talking about. You've never met the Jesus who stepped into human history. And he took on all of the pain and punishment of your bad decisions, of your mistakes, of your shame. He took on all of the pain and even the power of your sin. And with that, he took it to the cross and he stood in our place. He died on behalf of us and rose again so that we too could have life. If you're tuned in this morning and you've never met that Jesus, I would love to invite you to begin a relationship with that Jesus right now. And so if that's you and you want to enter into a relationship with Jesus so that you can be made right with God, I just want you to say this simple prayer. Just go ahead and close your eyes now and say, Jesus, I'm scared. And Jesus, I want to know you. And so today, in the midst of all of this pandemic and chaos and crazy, I invite you into my heart to bring me peace. Today I choose to follow you. Come in and lead me, lead my life. In your name I pray. Amen. Now, if you're with us online and you've prayed that prayer, we would love to know about it. And you can make a comment in the prayer section right now on the Church Online app, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, you can go directly to our website and you can fill out a Connect card, and you can tell us right there that you made a decision to follow Jesus. You might not fully even know what that means, and we would love to walk with you in that season. And so I look forward to hearing from you and walking with you. May you be blessed as you embrace this season of social solitude. We love you.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in.
joining us. We're really appreciative and grateful for technology that allows us to be together, even though we are kind of far apart.
6 feet plus apart, social
So,
distance.
yes, we're super glad that you guys joined us. But we don't just gather on Sundays, you know, all throughout the week. So.
All throughout the week, we got stuff happening on Instagram Live. We're going to be doing some live devotionals and worship time. So check out our website. If you haven't yet, sign up for our email list, fill out our Connect card on the homepage, and then just follow us on social, YouTube, all that stuff.
Yeah, so we can stay connected.
Yes.
We love you guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hello, Makers Church. This is Pastor Glenn
Linda,
and we are isolating.
but we're still praying for you and we love you guys and we just want you to know we're here for you. If you need us, reach out.
That's right. I'm not sure, not sure how. No, we call us, text us. If you need prayer at makerschurch.org. We are here 24/7. We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Stephanie.
And Rob.
We're coming to you from our backyard, hanging out with the kids, doing self-isolation.
Yep, and we miss you.
Miss everybody. Hope everybody's taking care of themselves. Thinking about you guys, praying for you guys. Hang in there.
If you need anything, contact the church and let us know. Okay?
Want to say hi, Kenny? Say
Want to say hi? That's as good as it gets.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Makers family. It's Pastor Jess and Evan and Kaito saying hi, wishing you guys well. Hope everybody is staying safe and trying to keep busy during what's been a really interesting time here. Just know that we're thinking about all of you, praying about all of you guys, and we're here if any of you need anything.
Stay safe, guys.
Bye.